Hello, my name is Alexis Jacobs, and today I will be discussing trauma and its impacts on conflict resolution. Trauma is any form of injury, but for the situation we're discussing mental trauma, which is an emotional injury. And when this is a long-term chronic issue, it is diagnosed as PTSD or complex PTSD. Complex PTSD is more common in people who experience childhood trauma. Childhood trauma can impact emotional and neurodevelopment, making communicating much more difficult due to skills that they learned as children. Anything can cause trauma. Any big situation can cause PTSD, but you are more likely to develop PTSD if you have a preset mental illness such as anxiety, depression, borderline personality disorder, or bipolar disorder. It's also vice versa. If you are someone who develops PTSD, you are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, OCD, or other mental illnesses. Common reasons to develop trauma would be somebody who is put into a situation where they have to go to war, or someone who experiences emotional or physical assault. This is usually perpetrated by somebody, a domestic violence situation, somebody in the family, or somebody who you are in a romantic relationship with. Symptoms of PTSD, they can include irritability, depression, exhaustion. It can cause illnesses such as autoimmune diseases, diabetes. It can cause a avoidance of conflict or even somebody causing conflict, blaming yourself or others for issues that may not be their fault, poor communication, poor sense of self, problems managing your emotions, apathy, detachment, and intrusive thoughts. So people with PTSD also have really intense emotions, bodily changes like panic attacks, nightmares, jumpiness, and behavioral changes in their day-to-day life as well after a traumatic experience. When you experience trauma, any trauma, so say you're walking down the side of the road and you get robbed, your brain is going to release cortisol and adrenaline. This is going to come from your amygdala. This activates your fight, flight, freeze, or appease responses. It raises your heart rate, it makes your breathing fast, and it puts you into a mode of trying to get out of whatever situation you're in. For a normal person, when this finishes, when this event is over, you can just calm down. Your body stops releasing that adrenaline, it stops releasing that cortisol, and you reach a level of safety. But when you're someone with PTSD, it is much harder to get out of that sense of fight or flight. It is much harder to get your body to go back down to a normal level. That is because when you go through severe trauma and you experience PTSD, your amygdala is like an alarm. It is being triggered when you have these situations. And when it's getting triggered at inappropriate times, it starts to just go off all the time, even when it's not necessary, because it essentially rewires your brain to try to protect you at all times. It also will cause a shrinking in your hippocampus. The trauma causes this, which creates a sort of trauma cycle. Your amygdala goes off, and then your hippocampus, because it is smaller, has a harder time deciding reality from a past memory. So it can make you less effective at processing emotions and deciphering the past from the present, and can cause you to have missed or fragmented memories pop up at inappropriate times. These memories themselves can trigger your amygdala. So you could even just be laying in bed, nothing happening, and one of these memories pop up, and suddenly you're in a panic attack, fight or flight sense when there is nothing going on. This part of your brain, it becomes really disrupted, making this cycle very difficult. And when we go into a situation where we do need to resolve a conflict, say being at work, you're arguing with, a coworker, your brain is automatically going into this fight or flight, freaking out, adrenaline, cortisone, heart racing when it's not necessary. And that can make it really difficult to use the skills that we learn in something like the communication class, because you're not able to decipher that this is a situation where you can use rationale and decide logic. So you have to find a way to be able to control your body in order to control your thoughts. I know that this sounds crazy, and for somebody with PTSD, you can feel really hopeless because you're not too sure how you'll ever be able to solve this issue, but there are treatments for this. Treatments can include something as simple as yoga or practicing mindfulness. There are two big therapies that are used during this. The first one being cognitive behavioral therapy. This is essentially a therapy that helps you retrain your brain into identifying negative thoughts and also changing those negative thoughts altogether, or patterns. You can do this by recording your own thoughts. So this would be a good situation, taking a video of whatever it is that you're thinking. Maybe if you have a memory pop up that's negative, and kind of talking yourself through it, helping your hippocampus realize that this is reality and that that is a past memory. Positive activities, so rewarding yourself for a positive day. Situation exposure, which is a really hard one, but putting yourself in a negative situation when it is safe for you and helping retrain your brain into thinking that maybe that situation isn't as bad as your body wants to react to it. Systematic desensitization, which is learning relaxation techniques to cope with difficult times. I know a common one is triggering both sides of your brain through tapping. You can tap your legs each side. It causes you to use both sides of your brain and can help kind of train your brain to start to calm down. Now that goes into the next form of therapy, which is EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is you focusing essentially on a traumatic event or memory, and then using lights to bilaterally trigger each side of your brain and helping you rewire your thought process to making a more positive viewpoint on the memory that you're thinking of. That is my personal favorite. I think it is a really effective form of therapy. And if you're somebody who struggles with this, I highly recommend looking into these forms of treatment.